This episode is brought to you by The Software Report, a leading information source on software companies and solutions. Today, we speak with Alex Atzberger, Chief Executive Officer of Optimizely, a leading marketing technology company that helps brands create, optimize, and deliver high-impact digital experiences through an AI-powered operating system for marketers. Since becoming CEO in 2019, Alex has led Optimizely through a period of strategic growth, including a major rebrand and a series of successful acquisitions. His leadership has positioned the company as a top choice for enterprise marketing teams worldwide. Optimizely's composable platform now powers marketing at leading global brands like Salesforce, Zoom, and Toyota, helping them move faster, experiment smarter, and deliver high-quality digital experiences at scale. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow. Well, Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Absolutely.
You have a wonderful background, and the audience will start to understand why as we uncover different parts of the things you're involved in. But before we head into that, just to set the stage for our audience, tell us about Optimizely, and maybe we can start with this very important problem affecting anyone with a website in today's generation of AI and how it's evolving. I recently just watched your post yesterday. It was phenomenal. Tell us about AEO, GEO. Let's start there so that our audience truly understands the problem you're solving.
Yeah, RJ, it's amazing. 8 billion people are changing their behaviors of how they find information and how they engage with brands. It is really that fundamental. I mean, for the last 25 years, you and I and everybody else on this planet, pretty much use search engines to find results. And now people want answers, and they come through generative and answer engines like ChatGPT and Perplexity and other tools. And I think when customers change, and basically end consumers change their way of doing something, it impacts every single brand in the world. Doesn't matter if you're a retailer or if you're a bank or if you do something else. Everybody is changing. And the biggest question for these brands is, how do I not become invisible? How do I still maintain control of my brand narrative? And how do I actually produce content that gets picked up by these answer engines? And so what we do for our customers is, our reason for being was always about helping marketers and brands create a great digital experience and engage with their customers. And now there's another way that happens, and it happens through, again, these answer engines. And that's why we provide now on our platform capabilities for customers to actually show up in those answers, and be able to still control the brand narrative. And I think that's really, really important, because ultimately everyone wants to be close to their customer, grow their business, etc. And just like before, there's a website, there's a social channel. Now there's another really, really big, important channel emerging very, very fast. And a lot of companies are already behind because so much is new, so much is happening so fast. And it's probably one of the most exciting times I can think about my career, RJ, right now in this very moment. And change is always opportunity. The biggest opportunities come from challenges, and today is full of them.
So could you explain how your technology or solution actually works? So if I'm a busy person and I'm speaking into ChatGPT and I just say, I'd like to learn about the top 3 banks and where I should maybe find a holistic solution across my business and personal financial needs. Typically, if you had previously typed that into Google, you would come up with some maybe web page recommendations, and then I would be able to experience the brand of that bank by going to their website, watching videos, seeing articles about their CEO, et cetera. Now it's simply factual coming back to me in text. And so how would Optimizely be able to either influence that experience or direct the user to the brand or something about the brand that helps, really tell the story of that
Yeah.
brand?
Yeah, in two major ways. The first one is the website and where your content is today. In the past, it was a window into your brand for human beings coming to your site. Now, that same website is being scraped and crawled by tools like ChatGPT. So that content that needs to be on the website needs to be written in such a way that anyone who scrapes or crawls the website understands concisely what you do so that you get picked up. So the first thing is, and there's technical aspects to this, which is like the tags that you use. There's something called an LLM.txt file that gets read. Those things need to be in place so that you actually get picked up and referenced by the site. It's about how you actually write something. It's about how concise it is. It's question and answer things that LLMs like. It's several things that, just like search engine optimization, you can now optimize. You are actually present. The big idea here, RJ, is that it's no longer just humans going to your site. Now it's bots going to your site. And so you need to not just optimize for the human traffic. Now you need to optimize for the bots who, again, use the content so that when you type in that question, you get referenced. So that's one part. The second part is that your brand is in many, many different places typically. Very simple example is there's a Wikipedia page probably about your bank in your example. That Wikipedia page should have the same content on it than it says on your website. So there's, and we do this with a lot of our customers, this notion about content consistency, content inventory, and really thinking about how do you keep content consistent across different touch points. Reddit is a resource, etc. And so when you do one of the LLM searches, and you get an answer, you oftentimes see at the bottom that it tells you how many different sources were referenced. When you actually click on this, it's your website, but it's also all the other places where your brand shows up. Now, if your answer of who you are as a company is always different across all these different places, guess what? Your summary result is going to be pretty poor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's those sort of things that we work with customers on.
I'm curious about conveying the look and feel of a brand, because it seems like that can get lost in the reporting back of just the consistent findings of the information. How does that get conveyed? For example, I watched your video on LinkedIn and I got a great feel for the problem you're solving. And it was communicated in a very clever and creative way.
Thank you.
How does that continue to get through to the audience if everyone's using ChatGPT?
It's a great question. I mean, obviously, I think the uniqueness of your content matters. And I think still creativity matters, because ultimately you do still want people to check out your brand and engage further beyond the touch point of the LLM. Mm-hmm. And I do think that's an important part. I also don't think it's all going to be just one-sided as it's everything going to be there. No, I mean, humans still going to go to a website, and yes, certain purchases you might say like, hey, or maybe certain information, you don't go to somebody's site, but for other things, you absolutely are going to engage. Mm-hmm. And I also think that the uniqueness of the content, the cleverness of how you actually express something is going to be relevant towards how you're going to be picked up. So I think that really still matters as well. My view has always been in anything technology related that it's never been a complete replacement of one versus the other, but I believe always in this notion of and. I do think that society and humanity has always been about doing more. When eBay came about, it wasn't the death of the online shop. The online shop wasn't the death of the retail store. It is actually all those different channels. And I think the same applies here. But I think, honestly, great content will still be the driver for engagement. And it will also make a difference if you have really great content relative to the journey that a customer goes on. That might start again with the ChatGPT, but might very well end up on your website and engagement on your website.
Mm-hmm. Now, to better understand Optimizely, can you give us maybe a more holistic picture of the various solutions you provide, and maybe which main solution is the key driver to most of your clients? And then along with that, what is the composition of your client base? Is it across the board, all industries, or are certain industries more prevalent?
Yeah. So what we do is we help marketers create great digital experiences that they can optimize and personalize through our platform. And so basically there are two big parts of our business. We are $400 million business, and there are two parts of the business, roughly the same size. One is managing content and managing a full content supply chain, which means for me, a marketing organization basically lives and breathes based on content. Every campaign, every website, every blog post, every social post, everything you see, every out-of-home advertisement, everything is actually content. We help companies manage all that content, and we help companies publish this content across different channels. One of those channels is the website, which we also provide. And that's a big, big core part of our business. And then the second part of the business is once you actually publish something, you want to understand your customer and you want to personalize it and you want to use data to assess what works well with what segment and how do you constantly test and optimize this. And that's where the name Optimizely came from. You know, early on, Optimizely was a pioneer in the A/B testing space. Actually started during the Obama campaign where two Google engineers helped Obama raise funds through the internet. And that actually became the original Optimizely. But it's this notion about behaviors, understanding behaviors of human beings at scale on the internet, because you can see clicks, etc., and providing them different options and seeing who is engaging with what. And what I just described to you, the content as well as the optimization, is a loop. It's a flywheel. We provide a platform what we call Optimizely One, where customers can manage content and optimize it. And so what basically happens is every time you publish content, you see how it performs, then it influences you again in terms of what you can do better on the content. And that flywheel is what we do for our customers. And so a large part of our customers uses us across the portfolio. Others use us primarily for content. Others use us primarily for optimization. That's the nutshell our business.
You have a wonderful background. You were in the early days in consulting, but you were also at SAP for a long period of time as a very senior executive, and then you found your way to running tech companies. So maybe for the benefit of our audience, can you give us a brief summary of your background and then how you ended up with Optimizely?
I'm going to spare you all the little details and so on, but I was always very interested in terms of how companies transform driven through technology and digital. But I was always looking more at it from a business outcome perspective rather for technology's sake. But my big career break, my journey really came on a 4th of July weekend where I was sitting in an office outside Philadelphia, and I was by myself in the office, and a gentleman walked in, and he looked around and he was trying to find somebody who had a head on his shoulders. And he walked over to me and said, like, he has a board meeting coming up. He just got promoted to the board of SAP and he needed my help to work on a pitch deck for this meeting. And he said, like, are you available? I said, yes, I am, because I just said to my friends, I'm not going to go to gamble at a casino. And it was a bad situation, RJ. But anyway, so I said, like, I'm going to be around for this. We worked all weekend long together. He actually then flew off to Germany, gave the pitch. And then he calls me a couple of days later, and he's calling me from the road in Germany. And he said, like, Alex. And I'm like, yes, hey, how are you doing? And he's like, Alex, I just want to let you know this pitch, it went amazing. From now on, I want you to work on all my pitches. And so that was my big break. And the person who called me is a gentleman called Bill McDermott. Bill became CEO of SAP. He is now the CEO of ServiceNow, probably one of the top business executives in the world. And sometimes you just need to be really lucky, RJ, to be at the right time, at the right place. I recommend people come to the office, because if you're not at the office, you wouldn't get that opportunity, you know, and that definitely helped my path. From there, then, Bill gave me great opportunities. One was going to China, running our business in China for SAP, which was a great experience. And then afterwards, SAP made acquisitions in the cloud. One of them was a company called Ariba, a procurement platform. Then Steve Singh, who ran Concur, asked me to run that part of the business, which was my really first big president job, running a 7,000 people organization. within SAP, and then afterwards I ran the Hybris business. We acquired companies like Calidus Cloud and others. So some really amazing teams, people, product solutions, and you learn a lot during that time. So that was kind of like my journey. And what I really loved was, I saw the shift from like just internal, let's say ERP, really towards the front office and towards growth and towards customer engagement. And so I love that space. And so when that opportunity came about with running a platform like Optimizely, it really was something I wanted to do.
Fantastic. Switching gears for a sec here, I think we share something in common in that we both love chocolate. I was recently at a restaurant just this past weekend in New York City, and it was a fairly fancy restaurant, and we were there for a birthday party. The waiter brings out the dessert, and he was going to pour this fudge on top of the dessert. And in front of this whole table, I said, I think you should just pour that directly into my mouth. And he comes over. So the look of horror on my wife's face, he comes over to me and actually pours the fudge directly. Half the table was laughing hysterically, half were looking horrified. But tell us about your chocolate company.
It's my midlife crisis, RJ, but I always love hot chocolate. And in the US, I think hot chocolate is a poor experience and a poor product because you're basically taking some cocoa powder and you pour milk or water over it. And for much of the country, that's what they think about when they think about hot chocolate. And if you are in major cities, etc., you find typically during Christmas time places that make really delicious hot chocolate. Normally it's melted chocolate. It actually comes from real chocolate. It's thicker. It's much more intense from a taste direction. And so I started a hot chocolate business right before COVID, actually. And then we decided to move it into a format where you can actually, out of a can, have that enjoyment of a rich hot chocolate. And so that was really the idea. And I still believe in the idea that at one point, just like bean to bar chocolate came about for chocolate bars. When I first moved to the US, it was all Hershey and people were spending $1.50 on a chocolate. Today, people pay $9 and buy bean to bar chocolate. And I think the same will happen with hot chocolate at one point, where people will say like, hey, I had enough of this watery chocolate water. I want to actually have a real hot chocolate. And that's what we want to do.
Excellent. We're coming up on the tail end of the conversation. I have two final questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who's had a profound influence on you?
My dad had obviously a huge influence on me because he was an entrepreneur and he ran his own company. So I grew up in a household where I always saw business and like the work that it takes to be successful and the fact that you do need to earn it. Nothing is given to you. That was always something that was very fundamental for me. It just always impacted me very, very profoundly. I'm probably a bad person to speak to when it comes to work-life balance, etc. I'm not the ideal person because I do think it is just part of who you are. And I do think there's something about really earning your success and working hard for it. And I think that's something that my father instilled in me.
Mm-hmm. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, one of the things I'm passionate about is living in a city. I always believe in causes that are close to you and close to your home and heart and so on. And one of the things living in a city like New York is a lot of the food waste that you see in a city. And also then you obviously see hunger and you see people who are homeless and who don't have the things you have. And so I'm involved with an organization called Rescuing Leftover Cuisine, which is a great cause. There's a lot of really good organizations. They really focus on smaller units of food waste and bring that back into circulation so that it helps. And I think there's a lot of positives here because on the one hand, there's an environmental impact. On the other hand, there's a very, very deeply human impact. So I always believe in causes that are, again, close to the communities that you're part of. And there's a lot of ways to give back. And I think that's really important.
Excellent. Well, Alex, thank you so much again for taking the time. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Ajay, great job. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.